Some men develop chronic prostatitis, a painful, long-term inflammation that's difficult to treat. Others end up needing invasive procedures just to feel normal again, but beyond the discomfort, there's something even more serious. Research, including studies from Harvard, has shown that regular ejaculation may lower the risk of prostate cancer. Why? Because when the prostate is regularly emptied, it reduces the accumulation of potentially harmful substances. But when that fluid is left to sit stagnant, inflammation rises. And with it, the long-term cancer risk. One patient of mine had gone nearly 2 years without any sexual activity. He told me he just didn't feel the need anymore. Thought that part of life was over. But when his PSA levels spiked, we did further tests and found significant congestion. His prostate was swollen, irritated, and we were suddenly discussing biopsies that could have been avoided, all with something as natural and harmless as occasional release. This isn't about promoting lust. It's not about indulgence. It's about prevention. It's about understanding that your body doesn't stop needing care at 60. It needs more. The prostate is one of the most vulnerable organs in the aging male body. And when neglected, the consequences aren't just uncomfortable. They're life-changing. But if physical discomfort wasn't enough, there's another consequence that hits even deeper. One most men never see coming until it's already taken hold. Emotional and intimacy decline. It's the quietest loss of all. And for many men, it's the most devastating. There's no blood test for it, no scan, but you feel it, a slow fading of the inner spark, a quiet disconnection from yourself, a numbness that creeps in, unnoticed. It usually starts with one thought: I don't need to masturbate anymore. Maybe it's because you're single. Maybe it's because you think it's just part of aging. Maybe it's because you're tired. But over time, that decision doesn't just affect your body. It affects your mind, your emotions, your very sense of being alive. I've spoken with men, proud, successful men, who tell me they feel hollow inside, not because of illness, not because of loneliness, but because they've gone months, sometimes years, without any intimacy, even with themselves, and gradually, they begin to feel invisible, unwanted, unnecessary. They may not say it out loud. Most older men never learned how to, but you can see it in the way they avoid mirrors and how they walk a little slower, in the quiet way they answer when you ask, "How are you doing?" This isn't about sex. This is about vitality, about the deep, essential connection between your physical body and your emotional well-being. When you give up self-pleasure entirely, you cut off one of the last remaining paths to feeling joy, to feeling real, to recognizing yourself. And for men over 60, that isn't just a loss, it's a wound. Arousal, pleasure, and release aren't just for young men. They're part of what keeps your brain engaged, your hormones balanced, your emotions steady. Neurologically, the chemicals released during masturbation, dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, are essential for regulating mood, reducing anxiety, strengthening emotional resilience. Without them, depression creeps in. Loneliness deepens. Even cognitive decline becomes more likely. I've seen confident, joyful men slowly become withdrawn, silent, and detached, not because something around them changed, but because they stopped connecting with the part of themselves that made them feel human. And what makes it so dangerous? They don't even realize what's happening. They never make the connection between their emotional decline and the moment months ago when they stopped allowing themselves intimacy. By the time the damage is visible, it's already well underway, and reversing it? It takes more than hormones or pills. It takes rebuilding a relationship with yourself. It takes remembering that even now, in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, your body still longs to feel, to express, To connect. This is the consequence that breaks my heart most, because it robs men of their quiet confidence, the warmth they used to share, and replaces it with a hollow shell, a man who no longer recognizes his reflection. But here's the truth I want every man to hear. It's never too late to come back to yourself. It's never too late to reawaken the energy, the joy, the dignity you thought was gone. And in the final part of this video, I'll show you exactly how. Simple, science-backed steps you can take today to restore what so many men have lost, and protect what you still have the power to preserve. Let's finish this together. There's a belief many older men quietly carry that intimacy, pleasure, and desire are things you simply grow out of. That at a certain age, the body is supposed to go quiet, and that letting go of that part of yourself is somehow noble, even respectable. But after more than 30 years working with men in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, I can tell you, that belief is costing far too many men their health, their happiness, and their identity. You've heard today how giving up self-pleasure isn't just a small change. It can trigger a slow breakdown in sexual function, a dangerous drop in essential hormones, prostate swelling, inflammation, and discomfort, and perhaps most devastating of all, a deep emotional numbness that erodes your sense of self day by day. These aren't signs of aging. These are signs of neglect. And the good news is, it doesn't have to be this way. Your body still remembers how to feel. Your mind still longs for connection. And your overall well-being still depends on you honoring every part of who you are, even the parts no one else sees. This isn't about lust. It's about life. It's about preserving the fire inside you, the part that makes you feel strong, whole, and human. You don't need to feel ashamed for choosing health over silence. You don't need permission to care for yourself. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to take it seriously. Take it personally, because it is personal. And if you're ready to take back control of this part of your life, I'm with you. You're not alone. And you are not done yet. If this spoke to something deep inside you, even just a little, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're still here, that you still care, that you're still fighting for your health. See you in the next video. They found him alone, slumped forward in his recliner. No signs of injury, no cry for help, just silence. The TV still glowing, his robe half open, and a kind of stillness in the room that only comes after something irreversible. The autopsy said natural causes, but those of us who know the signs know better. What really took him was something far more silent. A slow hormonal collapse, not a disease, but a quiet decline caused by years of neglect. And sadly, he's not alone. Every year, thousands of older men go through the same silent deterioration, losing strength, sexual function, and emotional clarity, all while believing they're doing the right thing by giving up something they assume they no longer need. You see, for decades, society has told men to avoid self-pleasure, that it's shameful, childish, unnecessary. But after age 60, that belief can quietly cost you everything. Because here's the truth no one wants to talk about. When an older man stops masturbating, his body doesn't just pause, it begins to shut down. The prostate becomes stagnant. Testosterone levels fall. Emotional resilience fades. And by the time the damage shows up, it's often already too late to reverse. I'm Dr. Mojit Kara, board-certified urologist and men's health expert with over 40 years of experience. I've worked with farmers, teachers, veterans, and grandfathers, men who thought they were doing the honorable thing by abstaining, until regret showed up in their blood work, in their fatigue, in their loneliness. Most of them had no idea that the habits they were taught to be ashamed of were actually vital in their later years. But here's the good news. In this video, I'm going to show you the 4 real health consequences that occur when older men stop masturbating, and more importantly, what you can do to prevent them before it's too late. These are simple, medically sound, and practical solutions. Thousands of my patients have used them to protect their health, restore energy, and stay confident well into their 70s and beyond, and make sure you watch until the very end, because the last consequence I'll reveal is one that even most doctors won't mention. It's also the one that could silently triple your risk of prostate complications if ignored. So if you care about your body, if you want to stay independent, vibrant, and alive as you age, this is a conversation worth having. If you're watching this right now, I want to hear from you. Type 1 in the comments if you're with me, or 0 if you're skeptical. I welcome both. Because this topic deserves honesty, not shame. Let's begin with the first and perhaps most dangerously overlooked consequence of giving up masturbation in older age. Loss of penile function. I've lost count of how many men in their late 60s, 70s, even early 80s have walked into my clinic confused and defeated. They sit down and say something like, "Doc, I don't know what happened. I haven't had a spontaneous erection in months, sometimes a year. It's like one day I was fine, and the next, something just stopped working." What rattles them the most isn't just the physical change, it's how sudden it feels. No warning, no signs, just silence, and it catches most men completely off guard. Why? Because no one ever told them that when you stop engaging in sexual activity as you get older, your sexual function doesn't just pause, it fades, quietly, like an unused muscle. Let me be clear, your penis is not just decorative, it's a vascular organ, a part of your circulatory system, and it depends on regular stimulation to stay healthy. When you go long periods without any sexual activity, especially after age 60, blood flow slows, oxygen delivery drops, and the tissues begin to stiffen. Not in the good way, but in the way that leads to fibrosis, nerve damage, and eventual, irreversible loss of erectile function. This isn't theory. This is basic vascular biology. Think of it like your legs. If you stopped using them for 6 months, what would happen? You'd lose muscle. You'd lose coordination. You might even lose the ability to walk. Now apply that to your sexual health. After a certain age, your sexual function doesn't go into hibernation. It starts shutting down if left unused. And the worst part? This decline doesn't announce itself with flashing lights. It creeps in quietly. First, your morning erections disappear. Then, even arousal or fantasy isn't enough to spark a response. Eventually, even medications don't work, because by then, the foundation has already eroded. I've had men look at me with tears in their eyes and ask, "Can I get it back?" Some can, with aggressive therapy, lifestyle shifts, and medical treatment. But others waited too long. They thought abstaining was healthy, that it showed self-control. But in reality, it marked the slow beginning of functional decay. And let's be clear, this isn't about being obsessed with sex. It's about protecting a key system in your body, your blood vessels, your nerves, your hormones, and your masculine identity. Even occasional solo activity, once or twice a week, can be enough to maintain circulation, keep nerves responsive, and remind your body this function still matters, because what you don't use, you start to lose. And in old age, that loss can become permanent. It's not about impressing anyone. It's about preserving your self-worth, your relationships, your confidence. And most importantly, it's about avoiding regret, because the most tragic part, this loss is preventable. All it takes is consistency. Not indulgence, but attention. Now, while most men fear losing their erections, they don't realize That's just the beginning, because what comes next cuts even deeper: your hormones. And when they begin to crash, the ripple effects spread far beyond the bedroom. Testosterone production drops. It usually starts in subtle ways. A man begins feeling off, not himself, but he can't explain it. He's not as eager to get up in the morning. His daily walks, he skips them. His appetite shifts. His energy drops. His mood? Flat, irritable, withdrawn. And deep inside, there's a quiet voice whispering, something important is slipping away. Most men chalk it up to aging, stress, poor sleep. But in my clinic, we've seen a different pattern. And more often than not, we find one root cause: their testosterone levels have dropped. Not just due to age, but due to the complete lack of sexual stimulation. And here's something most people have never heard. Masturbation is one of the only natural, non-pharmaceutical ways to keep testosterone levels from collapsing in older age. It's not about fantasy. It's biology. When you experience regular arousal and release, the brain responds. Dopamine increases. The hypothalamus lights up. And yes, even in your 60s or 70s, your testicles get the signal. Keep producing testosterone. But stop. Completely. And the message changes. Your body assumes intimacy is no longer needed. So it starts scaling back hormone production. And once that cycle starts, it's hard to reverse. Low testosterone doesn't just make you tired. It changes who you are. You stop caring about the things that once gave you purpose. Muscles shrink. Bones weaken. Depression creeps in. And worst of all, your heart becomes more vulnerable. Because low testosterone increases your risk for heart attacks and strokes. I had one patient, a retired firefighter, tell me, "Doc, I don't even recognize the man in the mirror." That wasn't vanity talking. It was grief. But here's the heartbreaking part. It didn't have to be this way. Little education and a simple habit he thought was wrong could have preserved not just his hormones, but his energy, his drive, and his spirit. Because once testosterone crashes in older age, it can take years and thousands of dollars to try and bring it back. But with regular, respectful engagement in your own intimacy, you can hold that line far longer than most people think possible. And while hormones may be invisible, the next consequence, you feel it. In your gut, in your bladder, in your sleep. It's physical. It's uncomfortable. And most men don't realize it's tied to one simple thing they're no longer doing. Let me explain. Increased risk of prostate. Congestion and pain. Most older men never talk about it. That dull, heavy ache deep in the pelvis. The strange pressure after sitting too long. The constant urge to urinate. Even when the bladder isn't full. It doesn't show up suddenly like a heart attack. It builds slowly, quietly, until it starts interfering with daily life. And by the time most men finally bring it up with their doctor, they've already been living with it for months, sometimes years. What's most surprising? How often this silent suffering traces back to a single, overlooked cause: prostate congestion. Often caused by the complete lack of ejaculation. See, your prostate isn't just sitting idly in the background. It's an active gland producing and storing seminal fluid. And that fluid? It's meant to move. It's meant to be released. But when a man stops having sex or masturbating altogether, especially in later years, that fluid builds up. It thickens. Pressure increases. And slowly, inflammation creeps in. That's when the symptoms begin: slower urine flow discomfort. In the lower back or pelvis, that middle-of-the-night urge to pee over and over again. As a urologist, I've seen countless men come in thinking it's a bladder issue when in fact, it's their prostate, swollen and irritated from months, even years of stagnation. And here's the part most men don't know. In many cases, the solution isn't a pill. It's movement. The body's own cleansing mechanism through regular ejaculation. When that natural process is neglected for too long, the consequences become far more serious. Some men develop chronic prostatitis, a painful, long-term inflammation that's difficult to treat.